Right, here we go. So today we want to leverage on property transaction reports with PropertyAdvisor, right? So this is an initiative by Property Guru. It's a very timely initiative, especially right now with the MCO having been extended again for another 2 weeks. I think a lot of us are sitting at home, actually most of us are sitting at home, trying to find very, very new ways or innovative ways to sort of conduct our business. Life has to go on, right? So we all have to try and find ways to carry on. And one of the things that is extremely important right now is really, there are a number of things with the uncertainty following the MCO. What's actually going to happen to our property market? I think that is a very valid point. I think there's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of chatter. There's also been a lot of views by a lot of practitioners and experts on the market as to where it is going. At the end of the day, we can only use data to sort of estimate where our economy is going to go from here, right? How it actually turns out is anyone's guess, right? If not, we will all be millionaires, right? We will all be holding crystal balls and knowing exactly what's happening. So how are we going to actually look at data, right? What are we going to do with this data? I think that's a very common question that people ask. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How are you going to leverage on data during this time? What are we as, I suppose, real estate practitioners or agents supposed to do at this point in time, sitting at home, right? So I think the main thing here as agents is really to cultivate and to reach out to a lot of your clients, to be able to reach out to customers who are probably feeling a little bit anxious by this MCO, who are a little bit uncertain as to what's going to happen to their assets. Maybe they're trying to sell it, and maybe they need to sell it quick. And how can you as real estate professionals assist these people, right? So let's dive straight into it, right? So first things first, we're going to show you how to log in and manage your account, right? Basic stuff. Pretty much housekeeping stuff, right? Then I'm going to jump into area and property insights. This is probably where we will really dive into the data bit, right? How we sort of look at things. And this is probably the part where I would welcome and encourage a lot of your questions in terms of analyzing this data. And then we'll navigate your dashboard and then talk about the benefits. So a lot of housekeeping stuff, but I want to highlight area and property insight. That's probably where, let's keep this session a bit light and engaging as possible. Right. So first things first, who gets this complimentary access? All agent partners with an active Property Guru account, excluding trial accounts, right? As of 31st of March, you will get access. When does it start? It has already started, the 3rd of April up to the 31st of July. And how do I retrieve my login credentials? Right, you can SMS, email for your link. The details are all there. Or you can contact customer care at inquiries@propertyguru.com.my or give them a call, right? So first thing first, it is free. It has started. If you haven't got your login, please do so at with the contact details as advised, right? So the data that we're providing you today is from PropertyAdvisor. PropertyAdvisor, we are the largest online transaction database in Malaysia. We hold over 6 million transaction data on our system, which we then supply to a very wide range of users, from banks to valuers to real estate professionals like yourself, as well as developers, right? So the application that we're talking about today is available on the web. I will be spending more time on the web, hence why this particular slide deck is showing you the app version. If you so please, you could download the app on the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store and get this. It's got PropertyAdvisor. You will need a iOS 10 or later, or Android KitKat or later. The whole thing is largely the same in terms of searching and all that sort of thing. So again, I'll show you this particular presentation will have the mobile application screenshots, as well as some web. But after this, I will jump to the web and give you a live demonstration there. Cool. So this is how you access on the web, propertyadvisor.my/home. You will be greeted by this particular screen, right? If you're going from the web. Now, this is something that's available only on the app. But you will have to activate your GPS. So the first screen that you will see on the app is this, where it will pull up a Google map and it will show you all the points where you can actually look for property transaction details, right? But your GPS needs to be activated. Great. So let's get to the meat of it. How do we search for your transactions? So on the web, there is this name section here that will, it's really just a search bar. It is an elastic search bar. What does that mean? It means that you can just type in whatever you want. So it could be a street address, it could be a scheme name, it could be an area, it could be a wider area such as Mount Kiara. As many of you property professionals would know, there is no specific Mount Kiara in the way the government sort of maps our data. Our data comes directly from Jabatan Penilaian. There is a difference between Jabatan Penilaian and NAPIC. Jabatan Penilaian is the raw version. Basically, it's the unedited version of the data, and NAPIC is the edited version of the data. So our data comes from JPPH, which is the raw data, and which we then clean. Now, let's go, for example, for an area like Mount Kiara. Again, the government doesn't have a specific area called Mount Kiara. All of this falls under the Mukim of Batu, and in some areas, it falls under Segambut. In certain areas, it falls under Mukim of Kuala Lumpur. So what we do is we then analyze the entire area and sort of define where is Mount Kiara, what do consumers or real estate professionals identify as Mount Kiara, and we sort of lump it in. And that's how we create areas as Mount Kiara. You'll also see things like schemes. Schemes are what the government has specifically named, right? So area is something we create. Scheme is something that the government has created. So scheme names will include things like SS18 Subang Jaya, for example. So these are scheme names. There is no fixed and fast rule as to how the government does it. Occasionally, they will be able to identify smaller areas. And in some cases, they won't. In the case of Mount Kiara. In the case of Mount Kiara, the government identifies each scheme as each particular development. You can also search for this in the app. It's the same way. Into the search box, just start typing, a list of suggestions will come out, such as this, and then you can go from there. Either a street address or the development name, and go. Once you've clicked on the particular area, click search, and it will take you in here. Now, you will only get this screen if you're searching the area. So if we go to the previous screen, if we look at Mount Kiara, the one that's highlighted in blue, if let's say we selected Mount Kiara residential as an area, you'll come to this section here, where it gives you an overview of all the developments, all the condominiums that have been mapped to Mount Kiara, and we'll give you some statistics on it, like the median price, the 25th and the 75th percentile. You can do some filtering here, filter by your building type. You can also filter by median price range. So that all of that is on top in the bar over here. And then you have the individual scheme names. So individual scheme names means the individual development. So Mount Kiara Aman is one particular condominium, Mount Astana, and so on and so forth. Just click on the transactions next to it, and it will take you into that record. Once you've clicked on the particular area, it will take you into this screen where you will see the area's median price. Oh, sorry, this is the same one as that. Okay, here we go. Once you click on a particular area, say for example, in this case, Pantai Business Center, it will bring you to the screen where you can filter by property type. So say for example, this particular development has 2 types of properties. You can filter by the different types, right? And you can filter by the built up area as well, right here. And that will change your median price. So if you're looking at a terrace house within the development or the condominium within the development, it will show a different median price, right? And what we are going to show you is the different price growth for each property types within a development as well. And as you scroll lower, you'll start to see transactions, right? So you'll always see the first 10 to 20 transactions. and you will be given an option to purchase these transactions. I'll show you in more detail very, very shortly how all of this works. This is, again, just an overview for you. And after that, you're able to print out a PDF copy of this report. Great. Let's jump into the actual screen, the actual website. Right. Here we go. Awesome. Right. So this is the PropertyAdvisor.my website. So I'll be showing you the demonstration primarily on this website now. When you first come in, you will be greeted with this. Once you log in, you will still see the same thing. It's meant to be as simple as possible. But let me just sign out first. Right. First things first, let's log in. You would have had the credentials from Property Guru, and I do suggest you log in. The reason for that is Property Guru has been extremely generous in providing you unlimited credits. So feel free to use it to get as much out of it as possible. So first things first, to the right of your screen, top right of your screen, click on Login and Register. You would be given your login, which is an email address. So in my case, I'll just put in, right. Right, I've signed in, welcome, it's my name, and back to the same screen. Now, let's go look for some properties. I'm going to search for, I want to show you the Breezeway. Okay, Desa Park City, the Breezeway. Let's jump into this. It has condominiums and it has a terrace house component to it. Let's search. Awesome. So this is what we get. When I search the Breezeway in Desa Park City, Desa Park City is the Breezeway. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the area, is a condominium development with a fairly large portion of three-story. I think it's three-story terrace houses. So it's a little bit mixed. Okay, so once I've searched an area that I'm looking for, in this case the Breezeway, you'll immediately see the next bit down, which is property group, terrace house and condominium. So you can actually break this up, right? Because the Breezeway has two. So let's look at condominiums first. In the last 5 years, where has been the lowest and where has been the highest in terms of the 25th and the 75th percentile, and then the median price. Now, I just want to address this thing. Like, why do we use median price, right? I know some websites use median, but a lot of the press and a lot of people still always will talk in average prices. Now, what is the difference between median and what's the difference between average prices, right? So average prices means if, let's say, you get a basket of transactions and you get a lot of, you will see, on a range, you get the low end, you get the medium, the middle, and you get the high ground, right? And let's say, for example, a lot of your, you may not have a lot of transactions on the high end or the low end, for example, right? But the disparity or the difference between the highest and the lowest is very, very large. Let's say, just for argument's sake, between 1,000 and 1 million, okay? Now, when you calculate the average, let's say there are 10 transactions, maybe 3 at 1,000, maybe 3 at 1 million, but the middle range could possibly be 300, for example, right? I know it's a terrible example, but basically, what I'm trying to illustrate is if you get an area like that, and if you calculated the average, you will probably find that despite most of the transactions happening at the lower end of 1,000 to maybe 30 or 50,000, but you've got this few at 1 million, your average price will most likely go all the way up closer to 1 million than it does at the lower end. And that's how averages work. Median, on the other hand, takes the middle ground. Where is most of the transactions happening? So it arranges all of the transactions and which category is the most transactions happening, and it'll take their middle ground. So for most property professionals and a lot of analysts, the median price is usually the go-to number because it does help eliminate some of the outliers. It does help eliminate and really just narrow down as to where are most people buying. So median price is usually the go-to. And in this case, what we've done is we've broken down the median price for, in this case, the breezeway on the price itself as well as the rate per square feet. Okay, relatively high, 908 ringgit per square feet here at the breezeway. Let's go a little bit lower. What we've also done is we've done an analysis between the property price and your property size. Now, why do we do this, right? I'm sure many of you have come across the larger the unit, the lower the rate per square feet becomes, right? Is that true? In some cases, it is true. But in this case, at the breezeway, it doesn't look like there is a huge difference between 1,000 to 1,500, 898 ringgit per square feet, 1,500 to 2,000 is 908, which means, what does this tell us is that for the condominiums in the breezeway, there isn't a lot of difference between the sizes. Now, there could be a number of reasons for this, right? From an analytical point of view, for all of you real estate professionals out there, I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of this, but in some cases, you get these sort of situations. It's possible that the development doesn't have a wide range in property sizes. If the development doesn't have a wide range in property sizes, and if you're looking between 1,000 to 2,000, you're quite close, right? Then you probably won't see a big difference, right? So it could be in this case. Now, the way we calculate 1,000 to 1,005 and 1,005, it's all on 500 gaps. It's just a standard that we apply across the board for all developments. It could be that the breezeway units all hover around the middle end of this range. So let's dive a little bit deeper and figure that out, right? I'm just going to skip all the way down here to the actual transaction. And I want to sort of look at this part here, the built up 1,003, 1,006, 1,002. So it looks like there are three sizes at the breezeway. And what we can see here is they don't range very far. Like you don't have big 2,500 square feet units. So that because that range is quite far, it's quite narrow. Therefore, you don't have a big gap between the rate per square feet between the sizes. Okay, so we will try and look for some other developments with larger variances, and let's see if we can get a difference there. But basically what this is trying to do is that it will just give you an idea as to, right, the next step up when I'm going bigger units or smaller units, what sort of discount or what sort of percentage discount am I looking at on a rate per square feet, right? Obviously the total the price in totality will be reflected accordingly. So, okay, so we've got this bit here, property transactions, history records, right? You've got your transaction graph, and this is something that you can manipulate, you can play around with it. There hasn't been a lot of transactions in the breezeway, but it just sort of gives you an idea of where most of the transactions are sitting. A lot of the condominium transactions in the breezeway are sitting around, occurred in 2018. And this is the sort of price range that they're looking at. And if you want to compare the breezeway with the rest of the state, you know, this is how the breezeway compares, obviously for KL. Now this compares two things. It's a little bit misleading when we are looking at Kuala Lumpur because one line shows Kuala Lumpur as the state and the other line shows Kuala Lumpur as the district. Now, interestingly, Desa Park City falls under the Mukim of Kuala Lumpur, which includes places like Kepong and whatnot. And this is basically showing you the condominium rates per square feet in Kepong. Most of it hovers around just under the 200 ringgit per square feet mark. So Desa Park City, by a long way, is here, right? But these sort of graphs are also really interesting, right? Because it sort of gives you an indication as to the performance of development. Now we know the condominiums in this case are, the units don't vary so much in size, which means the median price really is quite likely to be dictated by demand and supply. Do we have very limited supply in the breezeway in Desa Park City, or do we have very limited demand, or do the owners of the breezeway have very strong holding power, allowing them to dictate prices, hold on to their prices a lot longer than others? This gives us a very good indication of that. Obviously, the number of transactions is also a good indicator. There hasn't been a lot of transactions here at the breezeway. But you can sort of see this trend, right? It sort of hit its peak. 1030, 1026, we've hit its peak, and now it's on its downward trend. There is a small downward trend, 972, 972, 966, all right, in 2018. Then subsequently, there hasn't been any transactions since. Going on down, let's look at the number of transactions here in, now you'll notice that this is only tracking 10 transactions, right? Because there's only 10 transactions here. Now you'll notice that a lot of your transactions will be XXX. For you, as Property Guru has very graciously provided this service, you can actually just click buy all these records, right? You can buy the next 10, you can buy all, it doesn't really matter because it's all on Property Guru's tab, right? So let's go and buy all 39 records for the Breezeways condominium, right? Here we go, right? Slightly different. Now we have all 39 transactions, and you can sort of see where they sit, okay? Not a huge change in the way the trends work. It's still largely the same, but look, these are all your transactions here. Straightforward stuff, your rate per square feet and all that information is here. Your land, your build up, etc. You can go page by page. So go as far back as possible to the very first transaction in the Breezeway being in 2014. There's also a little comparison table at the end for Desa Park City. What we've done is we've identified specific areas like, okay, the Breezeway is within Desa Park City. What other developments are around the Breezeway? We do this via geocoding. So sometimes you might get some really, really funny properties. In this case, Menara Manjalara, or Plaza Manjalara, but by and large, you will get a lot of the more relevant ones. In this case, all these are all the other developments within the Breezeway. You've got Nadia, you've got the North Shore, One Central Park, etc. And you can sort of search, click on them and jump to it and sort of see where we go. Once you've got all of this, you can download the report. And this is what you will get, a report of the Desa Park City, the Breezeway, all your transactions, all your information right there. Cool. Now let's, but we've just looked at the condominiums. Let's look at the terrace houses in the Breezeway. So if I just click on terrace house, right at the property group section, this is what we get. Median price, 2.5 million, low at 2.18 and a high of 3. Now we're starting to see a little bit more of a trend here in terms of the size ranges. We can go from 779 for the larger units, right? But there's a bit of a funny gap, right? At 811, between 3,000 and 3,500. Again, this will be a good chance for you to dive into the specific data to sort of analyze why is that it is possible that there isn't a lot of transactions in this particular category. So let's go ahead and buy all the records in this area. Here we go. The data we put in, the most recent one will show up right on top, which means the most recent transaction in the Breezeway is in April 2019 for 2.86. Now this is for the terrace house, yeah? And then this is your price per square feet right here. You'll obviously see little quirks in the data, 953 ringgit per square feet for a built up of 3.2 with a very small land area. So this is possibly why the rate per square feet is high, because we've got a small land area, but very similar built up. So with a lot of Desa Park City, the breezeway in this case, quite likely a lot of the value is attributed to the building. Therefore, you'll still see this higher rate per square feet, right? And let's take a look at some trends. Very, very interesting markers here. The rate per square feet at the breezeways terrace houses appear to be falling. Now, what does this mean, right? I think recently some of the messages we've been hearing is among the real estate community is how do we find undervalued properties? Now, as a data analyst, I would probably say this is not big enough a sample size to sort of say yes, the market is going down for the breezeway and therefore the entire Desa Park City, but as real estate professionals, and if you do have a buyer looking for something within the breezeway, for example, this is probably a good indicator for you to say, look, the median price has fallen to about 1,485 ringgit from its peak of 2,111. So that's almost like a 500 ringgit per square foot drop. But again, the caveat, there hasn't been a lot of transactions in the breezeway. So maybe let's look at one with more transactions. I'm going to use very, very straightforward ones. And I'm going to jump to Mount Kiara Aman. It is a, I won't say it's a very old one. It's probably about a 20-year-old condominium development in Mount Kiara. Here we go. Mount Kiara Aman. It's a condominium. If I click on property group, I only get one. So it is condo, condo, condo. Awesome. Now, with Aman, you can probably see a better range here. The sizes go from 1,005 all the way up. I'm not sure if it goes all the way into 4,500 square feet, but there certainly are some units touching that. So you can see this trend, right? 717 for the smaller units, 615 all the way down to 570. So the larger the unit, the lower the rate per square feet. Now, this is one that I've unlocked already. I haven't unlocked all, so let's unlock them. So if you've unlocked 10 and then you unlock 20, what the system will then show is, do you want to unlock the remaining 15, for example, and then which you can do, right, by clicking on that button. Okay, so this is very interesting. Let's look at the where the transactions sit for Aman. Most of the transactions have been happening around here. They're sort of losing steam. This is what we call an outlier in statistics. At 7.4 million. What my suggestion is, we don't take the data out. If this is what the government gives us, we put it in. But my suggestion is, if it's so far off like this, do discount it. It's probably an error. It's a data input error by the government. But even if you were to put it into statistics, a z-score test or statistics test will immediately remove this as an outlier. So most of your data would sit here. Now, there's quite a large range. There's a 10-year range at the moment. It's a bit hard to sort of see a trend. So let's narrow this down, right? Let's narrow this further. All the way until 2017. You can see that most of the transactions actually hover, and there isn't a large trend up or down. Let's look at the median graph. So it's largely confirmed what we thought. There hasn't, again, no real difference. It's sort of been hovering around the 620 to about 580. There was a peak, right? Probably to do with that outlier. But you can see that most of Aman hovers very, very tight, which means this is a very stable development. Even when the market is, when did the market rally, right? 2014, 2015, that's when the market started to fall. So it's kept relatively steady. Now, again, probably not the best example, but if we were to sort of say, as analysts, right? If we look at something that has been extremely stable over 10 years, for example, and you start to see a trend downwards, and you start to see a trend down past its long term, it's not say long term, it's medium term, it's 5-year average, then that's probably where you can start saying, okay, this might be an area that is probably slightly below market and whatnot. So the key here for you, I suppose, is really identifying what is that long-term trend, what is that medium-term median price and rate per square feet, and do we see a trend falling below that, and is that trend sustained? Is it going further? Then that is a good indication as to whether a particular property is starting to go below its medium-term market value. So again, all your transactions, all the individual line transactions are here. A comparison of all the other developments around Mount Kiara Damai, Astana, Tiffany, Meriden, Banyan. So you can make that comparison where Aman sits. Aman is probably in the mid-range. It's not the most expensive in comparison to some of the others. Now this is a median price, again, not a median rate per square feet, right? So it's just showing you where's the median price. So 1.35 million to 1.675 million. The last thing I just want to show you before I jump back into the slides is all the data that you have been searching for, right? All of that, all the ones that you unlock, every time you hit buy the records, right? It actually creates a record. It actually creates a report for you. And so what you can do is jump into my folder right here at the very top of your screen, my folder, click on that, my documents. Once you go to My Documents, a list of all the properties that you have searched for will appear here. So I've just searched for Mount Kiara Aman, the file size 474, for example. If I click on this PDF, it generates the report. Here we go. That is your report right there. You click on the eye, it just opens it up again for you, and then you can delete that. Awesome. So that's basically the system in a nutshell. Very straightforward. I hope I've been able to give you as much information as possible. I'm just going to jump into one last screen. Here you go. Benefits. Straightforward stuff. Want to help you and your clients make very informed decisions. I think that's key, right? In this market, it's all about especially if buyers unable to come out, they're most likely going to make their decisions based on a lot of numbers, facts, and figures. Do these things make sense or not? We constantly update the database. Like we mentioned, we provide the data to about 70% of the Klang Valley's valuers, for example, use our data and our systems for their valuations. So we do keep all our data very up to date. We cover the entire markets of commercial, industrial, agriculture, land, all of that is here. For probably professionals like yourselves as agents, we've sort of curated the way the data is presented a little bit, just so it's a little bit more helpful. And really, we want to empower you as agents, right? To really say like, yes, you are the local area experts. You have the data to back up your claim. So if you say that, right, guys, I think it's a great time to buy. Why? You have the stats, right? So it's all about empowering and equipping all of you agents out there. So quick summary. You can search for your transactions. If you're using the app, there's the Nearby Me function. If not, it is into your search bar, right? You can filter your search results by your price range, your date ranges and whatnot. You'll get information on the median. So we talked about why we use the median and not average. You can also work out the price growth over the last 5 years and sort of analyze that. You can save and view all your purchase reports. So all of the ones that you've purchased will continue to stay on the system for you to keep downloading. And there's a whole range of other tools in there for you to look for. If there's any questions out there, feel free to give us a call or onto our support. We prefer WhatsApp. If that works right now during the MCO. So if you can WhatsApp us or just put in under the support email, we will get back to you as soon as possible. And last but not least, Property Guru has a bunch of things lined up for you. Amazing special edition webinar series. Stockpile your prospects by using these 3 Property Guru features. That's happening on the 5th and the 21st of May. And 3 must-use tech tools for agents in time of social distancing. So very, very good topics, very, very exciting stuff for you. I will probably leave you back in the capable hands of Kuga at Property Guru. And I'll be looking at some of the questions that you have right now. Okay, so you probably see a link coming up for more information on Property Guru's webinar series. Do click on the link where it says click here. Go ahead and click. I think those are excellent, excellent topics for us to look at. Awesome stuff. Before we wrap up, is there any other questions that any of you have? Yes, all the transactions record is sub-sale only. Maybe what to Andrew Ang asking this question, and maybe we can I can add a little bit to that. How our government records its data. So if anyone were to ask you, the government will only record your data when stamp duty is paid, right? So most sub-sale properties will have their stamp duty paid very, very quickly, within say 3 to 6 months of the SPA. So that's when it gets recorded. Projects, for example, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, you will see that the title isn't transferred. You've got vacant possession, but MOT isn't up until much later for a lot of new developments, 3 years, 4 years, etc. So that is probably when the data will flow into JPPH, because that's when MOT, that's when tax is paid, that's when the government will pick that data up and then put the record on. So we will have new development sales as well, but they will always come later. So even though the transaction is the property VP'd in 2018, for example, so all the developer sales should be around about 2018, right? But we will only likely see these developer transactions appearing in the database maybe 3 years later. But in the meantime, if it VP'd in 2018, there's been a lot of sub-sale transactions. You will see the sub-sale transactions first, right? So that's just to answer that misconception that the government only provides you sub-sale. The government provides both, but it's because when the MOT is paid, so that's when the data is provided. So then William Yong, you're asking, so is this useful for projects? This is an excellent question. Now, let me just caveat a little bit before I answer this question, right? I think now we're at a stage where a lot of bankers will probably tell you that end financing is something that they are seriously considering. And so would it be useful for projects, right? When it comes to end financing, banks will also do their own assessment as to what is the actual market price of a property. Now, I won't be able to say how each bank does it, but in general, I'll speak in very general terms. Now, whilst I am a trained valuer, I am not licensed as a valuer in Malaysia. I am licensed in Australia, but the fundamentals are very, very similar. When you do a valuation, you will try and figure out what is a property most likely going to sell for in this current time, in this current market, right? And so the best indication in the absence of any recent transactions from the developer, because again, JPPH doesn't record those developer sales until the MOT is paid, which means a valuer will have to make a comparison to transacted prices, which is the sub-sale prices, right? Now, a valuer will then have to pick the most comparable property, which means you can't really pick up the valuer won't pick up like an old apartment building, for example. We'll try to pick up a very new, recently vacant possession condominium with very very similar characteristics, right? And then say, right, if that particular condominium sold for X amount or X rate per square feet, then this new development, which will VP next year, should roughly be around this range, right? So that's generally the rough way in terms of figuring out, what is that actual market value for your project. A lot of projects come with rebates and incentives. So again, calculating that as property professionals, I'm sure you will get that question. So how do you make that calculation, right? So what is the market price, so to speak, and what is the rebates and incentives, and do those match? Would be one way I would look at it. So how frequently is the data updated? We update this every month, except during this MCO where the government departments are not working. Otherwise, we update this every single month. Let's just see if there's any other questions. Right. Is there any other questions, guys, before we sign off for the day? So Rachel is asking, can we get similar value properties in nearby vicinity as alternative for customers? Example, the Breezeway, how do we find similar properties nearby? So PropertyAdvisor does have a nearby property feature. So if you were to search, let's say, I'm just going to go and reshare this very quickly. Right. So you can see this screen that I've just reshared. I'm just going to jump into Mount Kiara Aman, which was the one that I just looked at. And this is your report. Let's jump all the way to the end. There's a lot of data for Aman. Right, here we go. So there's always going to be this nearby assessment. Again, it is based on a Google geocode. It's not exhaustive, but it does try to give you an indication of what are the other condominiums around. So for you to get more out of it, you could jump onto Google Maps and figure out, like, right, where are all these, in proportion to where our development is, and is there any other developments around there? And then you can jump onto PropertyAdvisor, type in the name of that development, and get more information on it. So this just gives you a rough guide as to their prices and where they sit. Okay. So median price, Rachel, thanks for your question. Median price is basically the middle price, right? So as we explained earlier, if you've got a lot of transactions happening in this particular, let's say there's 10 transactions in Subang Jaya. Let's just use Subang Jaya, for example. There's 10 transactions, hypothetically. And 8 of those transactions happen within 700 and 750. The median price will actually take the middle. So where most of the transactions are, they'll hit the middle point, right? And what is that middle value? It could be 720,000, for example. So that's really how the median works. And coming back to the example of 10 transactions within Subang Jaya, where 8 of them sit within 700 and 750, you might have one transaction at 100,000 and one transaction at 2 million, right? Say, for example. So if we took the average at 2 million divided by 10, you obviously get a far higher number. Or if you took 100,000 divided by 10, you get a very odd number. So if you add all of this together as well, you would, in effect, so if you're adding 100,000, right, and then you add in the 8 transactions that range between 700 and 750, and then you add that 2 million, the average will dictate that your number is going to be much closer to 2 million, right? So that's just statistics, and that's why the median is usually a better gauge. of this, right? Any other questions? How can we get the best median during this COVID season? You know, Jacqueline, that is an amazing question. I think a lot of people are wondering the same as well. It's quite hard because JPPH is not releasing data at this point. So it is a little hard for us to figure out. Now, from a data analyst perspective, right? From a data analyst perspective, you can sort of say, right, the data is showing us the median of X amount, right? And what are the asking prices telling us, right? What are, I'm sure you can jump onto Property Guru, you can look at all the listings and sort of see where the listings at. Now, chances are, property is a very lumpy subject. It's a very lumpy product, right? Which means your prices won't be reflected like the stock exchange. It doesn't change from day to day, right? So, and the reason for that is because there's a lot involved in selling a property. No one realizes a loss until they sell a property, right? And a lot of these sort of decisions will hinge on an individual's holding capacity. How long can you hold on to a supposed loss? And someone's motivation to buy and sell. Now, property is a very emotional thing, so you're unlikely to get it transacted. And the whole transaction process isn't as simple as clicking sell, like you're selling shares, right? It takes a while. It takes 3 months, right? So that is why you will never be able to see like right on the money. Today, this is the median price, but we can get a feel for it based on historical, which is what PropertyAdvisor can give you. We can look at the listing prices, and Property Guru does have a lot of listings. I think by far the largest amount of listings in Malaysia, right? So you can go there and you can have an indication of what are your listings telling you, and then more importantly, this is the part where we can go to your customers and say, hey, you're looking to sell, right? What's your feel? At this price range, are you, is this a price that you can take? And that's really, whenever we do an analysis of the market as data analysts ourselves, we also have to take into consideration what the feel is on the ground, which also means speaking to real estate agents who will get their information directly from the owners, the customers, the buyers, the sellers. You see, so that is very key. That's very, very key for us in understanding what is the market thinking at this point in time. So to really answer your question, I know I've just sort of gone in the long way around, but Jacqueline, to really answer your question, it's about looking at the past. It's about looking at what's available for sale and really getting a feel for what your customers are saying, and then putting it all together and coming up with, and that will give you your estimation of what is the median during this COVID season, right? So you've got your base from the past. You can sort of have a feel for it and see whether that tallies up with the listing prices, and then whether your customers are willing to accept that sort of number. That would be the way I would look at it. So the median price to Seok Hoon, your question, 10 transactions average. No, the median price is calculated over a 5-year period. We will be putting an update to this very, very shortly. We will wait until the weekend before we update the site, but we will be putting a shorter range median as well, just for comparison. So you'll get a 5-year median comparison as well as a 2-year median comparison just for better analysis. And I think we've sort of covered everything.